Welcome, welcome, welcome to another edition of Live from Region 2. I'm your host, Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament, Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. Just go ahead and share the live. Share the live. Just go right ahead and share the live. We'll just wait a few seconds or minutes to get into this substantive discussion. Share the live to your family, friends, colleagues, co-workers. It's Gloria Wilson, first person on the program tonight. Good night to you. Good night to the folks in Linden. Night to the folks in New Amsterdam. Those way up north in the US, in Canada. The folks in England. Those in the Caribbean, special good night to you. Welcome to another edition of Live from Region 2. Gail Alicock, good night to you. I see you. Audrey Brown, blessed good night to you as well. Come on, folks, share the live. Share it in your groups. Share it on your pages, your social media platforms. Good night, Samantha Eulina Moses Clark. 4 names like myself. I thought for a while I thought I was the only one that had 4 names. You know, the old school people used to give us, give their kids a lot of names. And like me, well, I'm named after famous people. Never had any idea that I would have become a politician, but my grandfather was. So I think it was obvious. It's in the blood. It's in our blood. It's in our family roots, in our history. Shurwayne Forbes Kennedy Holder. And I tell you this, Kennedy came from the famous American president. I don't want to share his fate. By no means. He was assassinated, but he was a young, vibrant president. I believe he was someone that was advocating for the rights of minority groups. So I think we can relate to that. Good night, Mr. Ronald Jerrick. Desiree Blair, looking from, is it Atlanta? Atlanta. Seems as though Miss Blair is all the way in Atlanta. We have a party group in Atlanta, and I believe that group should be twinning with region number 2. So just share to those folks, share to those PNC supporters up in Atlanta, tell them that we need a lot of help here in Region 2, Ms. Blair. We need a lot of help here in Region 2. So we look forward to the support of you guys there in Atlanta. Of course, the Jagabats here too. Tage Paul. Look, folks, just reply to Tage Paul. Look not. You know, they got all these fake profiles, fake names. Kwame heading that. We know that Kwame used to head that department prior to 2015, and then he heads that department now. Mr. Aziz, good night. May peace and blessings be upon you and your family as well. Good night to you and your family. Philip Drayton, good night, my brother. Tiger Bay in the house. Good night to all the folks in Tiger Bay, all our supporters in Tiger Bay. We got to keep fighting. We have to keep fighting for you guys. I know Ali and the other folks like to run up in Tiger Bay and other areas and take photo ops and these pictures and try to say that they love you guys in Tiger Bay. But we know better than that. We know better than that. It's not about photo ops and those photo opportunities. They have to do meaningful things for the people of this country, meaningful things for the people of Tiger Bay and so many other depressed communities, so many other poor communities. And until we begin to see that happening, we won't be fooled. We won't be fooled by those photo ops. So we have a lot to discuss. I see the PPP, Mr. Luknat there, obviously a supporter of the PPP. You're welcome, my brother. You can be on this program too. He says something about math. I think he's referring to the little error in Parliament I made a year or so ago. And this is the way of the PPP. They use that to tell their supporters that, Holder doesn't know math. Holder doesn't know math. The education, all this happening while the Minister of Education, responsible for education, says what she said in Parliament. Man, look, I wouldn't waste time. I wouldn't waste time with these people. We all make errors at some point in time. They got a minister there who is a criminal, who molested people, molested young boys, who would have tossed feces in the face of an activist. So you can't come on this program to tell me about math. And you got a man with one subject there. You got people, you got some of them, I don't even know if they have any subjects. Some of them there that are ministers of government and members of parliament, totally unqualified, and who would have done some ridiculous things, some unlawful things, and yet they're sworn in as members of parliament to represent the PPP. But that is how the PPP operates. That has always been the way how the PPP operates. Folks, just go ahead and share the live. We have a number of issues to discuss. Courtney October, good night, my brother. Just looking at the list here. Go ahead and share the live. Share it on your different platforms. June Jeffers Edwards, good night. Looking from Maryland in the US. Good night to all the folks in Maryland. Paulette Greaves, Maryland in the house again. Marla Ali Cock, good night. I know there are some Ali Cocks there in Latam. I'm wondering if you're one of them. Hi, St. Kitts. Good night, family. Magnell Barrow, good night. Good night to you. Colin Sandy, good night. Hubbard, good night. I know some Hubbards from Queenstown, key support area in Region 2. Good night to you folks from Brooklyn. Jean Williams. I've been to Brooklyn a few times. I have some relatives living in Brooklyn. I've been there several times. Beautiful place. Clean environment, at least the sections that I would have been in. Caught up with Mr. Rickford Burke up there. We had a little time to socialize and to move around the Brooklyn area. Good night to all you folks. I think we can get straight into tonight's program. Yes, I see Roxanne Cadigan. I see your comment. The fake profiles, what they do is send, they send these fake profiles to tackle you and to give you a fight. Once you're going to criticize or expose the government, this is what they do. I read in the newspaper just today or yesterday, you got these fake accounts on Facebook criticizing the Guyana Human Rights Association, saying something about they're not in good financial standing for how many years. Now, look, the people could care less about the Guyana human rights financial standing. What they care about are the issues being highlighted by the Guyana Human Rights Association. But that is the way of the PPP. Once you step out, you step up and you expose them, you talk about their corruption, you talk about their excesses. That is what they do. And we know at one point in the history of this country, they went beyond that. You had that fellow, what's his name, with a loud hailer that used to go in front of Anil Nandalal's office, and we know how that ended up for him, and so many other persons, so many other critics. Freddie Kissoon got some feces thrown in his face, and I'm convinced that Freddie, more serious things would have happened to Freddie did we not take office in 2015. But they got a saying that when you're sorry for Magadog, they always come back and bite you. And not to say that Mr. Kissoon cannot be a critic of us. He would have criticized the coalition for a number of years now. But you didn't see us throwing anything into Freddie's face or doing anything, coming out and attacking him in any way whatsoever. What we did was engage him in debate. We made our position clear that we disagree with him, and we had several persons, some of our MPs, even appearing on his program. That is how you do it in a democracy. Unfortunately, under the PPP, I'm not certain that we are living in a real democracy here in this country called Guyana. So, folks, we want to get straight into the program. I see a lot of persons that have tuned into the program tonight. Folks from all over the country. I see persons from Cleveland, Ohio, Maryland, Atlanta. I see folks from Berbice, some right here in region number 2. Linden. I'm looking for somebody in Linden. My Linden folks are always here. Might be somewhere. The list is too long for me to go through. But I'm happy to see so many of you tuning into this program once again. And I want to encourage you to tune into each and every program that we have. So I want to get straight into tonight's program. There's lots happening. We had a press conference today. Lots was said at that press conference by the leader of the opposition and some of the other panelists. And as we continue to follow what is happening in Guyana, we see so much that is taking place, so much negative that is taking place under this PPP government. And that would not have started, or that would not have begun recently, but for the last 2.5 years, we've seen this kind of practice. We've seen corruption constantly increasing. We've seen discrimination, widespread discrimination at this point in time, just creeped up at us. We would have foreseen it in the distribution of the flood relief and the COVID. I believe it was foreseen in the COVID distribution of the COVID cash grant. We saw the firings, we saw so many things, and it just continues to develop under the PPP. You had the US State Department just making some statements also. So we want to, and commenting on the corruption and what's happening in Guyana. So we'll want to discuss that as well. So operator, if you can pull up the first, I believe the first slide. The first slide, yes. And so we're discussing PPP 2020 to 2023. And as I said, we're seeing increased corruption in high offices. We've seen the Sugate scandal that is that would have been exposed by Vice News or Vice Media just about a year ago, and it is quite unfortunate. It is quite unfortunate that the U.S. State Department failed to mention that. It is something that the media, it is something that the people should observe, that while they criticize Guyana and they criticize the police force, and they're basically saying that there are reports of corruption at all levels, and they also went on to talk about the corruption specifically in the police force with regards to the killing of paper shorts and the subsequent cover-up that was chronicled by police police officer Bascom, who continues to fear for his life, who would have written to the president asking for protection through his lawyer, I believe, Nigel Hughes. They got no response. Hey, this is how the PPP deals with it. This is how the PPP deals with it. Then they come back to tell you that, Anil comes back to say they got it wrong. The State Department got it wrong. They're wrong about the Bascom investigation. But the entire public knows about it. The entire public watched the live with Bascom. The entire public watched the events surrounding the killing unfold, how it unfolded. The entire public knows that none of the cameras around the prime minister's residence and the president's residence right in the vicinity of the area where Paper Shorts was killed, was executed. None of them were working according to the police, and Bascom did dispute those statements made by the police. So the public is very much aware of what would have transpired or what continues to transpire with regards to that matter. But yet you have Anil Nandalal coming out to say that the State Department got it wrong. The State Department got it wrong. And the Chronicle and the Guyana Times will put a spin on it. I've already seen a spin from I think it's the Guyana Times, which highlighted something. They picked a little one line maybe in that report that is supportive of the government, and they choose that as their headline. But I want to before I get into that report, and I have some clips on that report. I was reflecting today to think. I was thinking, where are we going as a country? And that's the question many Guyanese are asking. That is a question. That is something that many Guyanese are concerned about. Especially those of us who are patriotic. We love our country. We are proud to be Guyanese. But we ask ourselves, where are we going? We are seeing the Guyana government receiving huge sums from oil. Just today, I read an article which stated that the Stabroek block, and that is the block which is producing the oil currently, that the production has now increased by 5%. It's now increased by 5%. The last figures I knew they were producing, it was about 3 it was 360,000 barrels per day. Now they claim to be producing 390,000 barrels per day. And that is just from two projects. That is just from two projects. They would have, they would have, the government would have signed on to, would have approved rather, a third and a fourth project, and they're in the process of approving a fifth project. So, the question is, where are we going? Where are we going? Because nothing is happening for the people, for the ordinary people of this country. We see a few projects here and there. There is talks about a bridge across the Demerara River, which is still to materialize. We're in 2023. We were hearing about that since 2020. In fact, the coalition would have initiated some part of that project, and it was modified by the PPP. Um, I guess it's their idea is to take ownership, to say, well, this is their project and it's not the coalition's project. So they changed the location and a few other things. Also, they would have made some changes there, in my view, and in the view of many Guyanese, to create a situation that would breed corruption. But I don't want to get in too much into the discussion on the bridge. The question is, where are we going as a nation? And that should be on the minds of all Guyanese. I will tell you this. There are very few countries, very, very few countries, which would have been successful, which would have seen the lives of all their citizens improve drastically. And I'm talking about the countries that would have discovered oil. Very few of them. You don't believe me? Look at Venezuela, Nigeria, a whole host of other countries. There are very, very few countries that would have seen vast development in a way that would have benefited, especially the poor and the vulnerable people of that country. And so Guyana is in a similar situation now. Guyana is in that position where we would have discovered oil. I think it's about 7 years now. And the question is, where are we going? Have you seen that kind of improvement in your lives? Some economists are saying that the citizens are worse off now that we have oil. Some of them, and you have some independent people are now commenting. It is not the PNC or APNU AFC saying this. Independent people are now saying that Guyana is going nowhere. Independent people are giving their opinion. And on the screen, you have one such person who would have made such a statement in recent times. This is Dr. Damien. This is a fellow from Jamaica. I can't remember his last name. It would be in the article just after. But he is saying basically that Guyana, he's looking from the outside. He's not part of the coalition. We're not friends. It's the first time I'm actually coming across this fella. And he is saying, paying attention to Guyana politics. He appears to be a political commentator in Jamaica. And he is saying, look, he's praying that Jamaica doesn't discover oil. And he's basing that claim based on what he's seeing happening in Guyana. And he's basically saying that he's seeing a lot of corruption, and we don't have the institutions, or the institutions are not so equipped to deal with this kind of influx of funds and the corruption surrounding the influx of those funds. That is what he's saying, basically, that we will likely to the oil course. Some commentators are saying that we're already there. We're already suffering from the oil course. The facts are there. The cost of living killing us, killing the ordinary Guyanese, and even those that have a middle income. Even those that have a middle income are feeling the squeeze constantly. In communities, people are still complaining about basic things. Look at the health system, shortage of drugs, poor service. You know, they can build as many hospitals. And somebody said this to me just recently. A young woman said this to me. She said, you know, what's the point of building a hospital when the service is still shitty? That is how the ordinary people feel. That is what the ordinary people are saying. The ordinary people believe that we are going nowhere under this PPP government. When there was, I can recall when you had that announcement of the oil fine, people were so happy. People were celebrating. People had hope under the coalition because you had somebody at the helm, and you had a government that had integrity, a government that was not corrupt, a government that was not divisive. You had a government that was for all Guyanese. And you know, some people will dispute that. Largely, I believe the general population believe that the APNU AFC coalition was a government for all Guyanese. We tried to promote social cohesion. We looted the resources across the board without looking at friends, family, and favorites. Mr. Gaskin, our very own Gaskin, is another independent critic of what is happening now. And Mr. Gaskin is not a coalition or a coalition member. He criticized us the same way. He criticized us the same way on any issue that he thought, you know, that he whenever he didn't find favor with us. So this is what the Jamaican said. He fears the country could fall victim to the Dutch disease, and that we lack strong institutions to prevent oil corruption. And this is an independent person, Jamaican economist, saying this about Guyana, looking in from the outside. This is not coming from APNU AFC or from me. It is coming from an independent source. Here is another fellow, Randy Gopal, not an independent person. He has a master's in political science. And back in December, just a few months ago, December 7th, he said, Guyana is an impending disaster and no one is listening. And what he when you go through the article, what he's saying, he has been looking at what the PPP has been doing in terms of race relations and discrimination. And this is how he made that conclusion, by looking at what the government has been doing or not doing. When you go, I invite persons to Google this article and see what Randy Gopal is saying. And this is not, he's not of Afro heritage, of African heritage. He's of Indian heritage, at least he appears to be. And this is what he is saying. This is a credible source, credible people making these observations. So if you don't agree or you don't believe what the coalition is saying, listen to the independents. Pay keen attention to what they are saying. Every day, our members of parliament and leader of the opposition is chronicling these inequalities, inequity, discrimination, outright discrimination that's happening in this country. Every single day, we're putting it out there. The leader of the opposition has been working tirelessly. Every day he's out there. He's been speaking to those in the diplomatic corps. He's been speaking to local activists, local groups. He's been speaking to ordinary people, ordinary Guyanese. Every single day, he's been relentless in what he's been doing. When you look at index, and this is from a period when you had the PPP in government and then the coalition for those short 5 years, and from 2010 to 2020, I'm sorry, I don't have from 2020 to 2022 to show what has been happening. But we can get that on another program. The corruption is high. Now, what you're seeing there in the graph is lower the number, more corrupt you are. So if you're number one, you're the number one, or you're the lowest, you're the most corrupt. So you can see under the APNU, AFC, those skyscrapers began to build. The PPP in 2010, they were just about 25. When we left office, we carried that up to over 40, maybe 41. That's when we left office, there was less corruption in this country. Now the PPP went, on all the programs, and they tried their best to convince some of the public that, the APNU was corrupt and all these type of things. And when in fact the evidence clearly show that there was less corruption. I don't know if you can totally eradicate corruption. We must always strive to do that. But there was less corruption. And now after 2020, coming to 2023, everybody's talking about the corruption in Guyana, including the US State Department. Now, I urge persons to go to the US Embassy website and download it, have a look at it for yourselves. And I have a few extracts. I don't want to put it up on the screen because of time. But what they're saying in that report is this, and I can read it for you. Corruption by police officers was frequent. And they went on to talk about, in August, police officer Dion Bascom alleged that a businessman bribed members of the police force to foil an investigation into an execution-style killing of Ricardo, a gold miner. They went on to talk, and that is under corruption and lack of transparency in government. That is what they said there. They went on to talk about arbitrary arrests being made. They talk about politically unlawful or politically motivated killings. This is the US State Department. It is not APNU AFC. US State Department making these claims. Of course, Anil Nandalal says that it is not true and they are going to meet them. Look, this is the US State Department we're talking about. They've already done their investigation and they know what is going on. These people don't just put out a statement just like that. They know what they're saying. They know exactly what they're saying. I'm a little dissatisfied because what I thought should have been the main article on the corruption should have been the Sugate scandal that would have occurred in 2022. The Sugate scandal should have been, but for whatever reason, they weren't willing to put that into this report. But I'm very much sure that it will come in other reports. You can recall on, I believe it was June last year, on the 11th, you had Robeson Ben saying to this nation that there will be an investigation. The day after that, you had Irfan Ali coming out to say that there should be an investigation or there will be an investigation. Jagdeo came the very next day and said there should be an investigation. 1 year later, no investigation. Nobody can touch him. Absolutely nobody can touch him. That is the state we're in today in this country. That is what is happening in Guyana. That is the reality in Guyana. And today I was listening to the leader of the opposition, and he said, when he was asked a question by the media, he said, when a fish rots, it rots from the head. And so once you have those at the top that are involved in corruption, then it will trickle down through the institutions, through the judiciary, through the police force. It will trickle down. These folks intend to rob. They intend this government. The intention of this government is to enrich their friends, family, and cronies. Friends, family, favorite. That is what is happening. And when you look at the resources that they have and and how they're treating certain communities, when you look at that, operator, you can pull up back that same picture. I must talk something on region 2. This is Westbury Playfield, and the people of Dartmouth, the community of Dartmouth doesn't have a playfield, so they essentially use this playfield between Dartmouth and Westbury. Coalition strong. They use this playfield. We fill up this playfield during our time. We placed lights, and we had it in a proper state. This is the condition of the last year, maybe longer than that. During the last school sports, you had a child suffering from an injury. Just recently, the youths from that area complained to me that they're unable to practice. They have a club, competition coming up, but they're unable to practice. What they have to do is see them, and one of them was injured there due to bottles and so on the CDAM. This is how the PPP debates against the coalition supporters, perceived supporters of the coalition. This is how the PPP operates. When we didn't do that. When we put lights in one area, coalition area, we go and we put one in areas that are not supportive of us. It brings me to the point where today I saw several of the ministers. You had the infrastructure minister. You had some others putting up the Linden synthetic track, And they're trying to own that project and to say to people, the people of Linden and the country, oh, we love Linden. When it was them who, in the first synthetic track, they should explain why they placed it in Region 3. Historically, the records would show and prove that the majority of athletes, successful athletes, come from Linden. From sports to the senior level, successful athletes, the vast majority comes from Linden. And so Linden was the obvious place to put a synthetic track. When we hadn't so much money. But it chose in Region 3 to satisfy their own interests. They had a plan there to build a gated community, and so they wanted certain attractions there. And so they put it there. The coalition came in with the little money that we had. We looked to do one in Linden, and we had others earmarked for Poor Beasts and other places. That was the coalition vision. That is the coalition vision. Now, on your screen there, that is the condition of some of the roads in Region 2. That is the condition of some of the roads. And this is the main road. This is the main road in the Charity area. And the story is pretty much the same in a number of other areas. But you know what? Local government are coming. And so you will see a flurry of activities. They will move to fix whatever roads they have to fix in government. This is one by the multilateral school, next door to the multilateral school in Bushlot. Picture was taken and told they're now moving to fix these. Soon they will fix all these roads. All these roads will be fixed. Contracts were awarded in Region 2. I believe there are 25 roads being done in Anne Regina. Just in Anne Regina community. 25 roads in Anne Regina community. And you have other communities, coalition support areas like Danielstown and Dartmouth and where you might find only one road being done there. But 25 roads in Anne Regina. If you go to a village named Reliance in Region 2 here, it's a PPP stronghold. And they have a right. They have a right. They deserve proper roads as any guy needs, as every guy needs. What I'm doing here is to highlight how this government operates and highlight where their priorities are. Reliance is a PPP stronghold. If you go, you will see round and round and round, round and around every road they're hustling to do now because local government elections are coming. They're so disrespectful even to their own supporters. Even to their own supporters, they're so disrespectful because it's only when local government elections are coming. So they're fighting up now to do all these roads, and their priority is to do the roads in their support areas while they do 1 and 2 in the other areas. I was at a meeting in Dartmouth just a few days ago, and the residents were complaining bitterly that they do a part of the road and they left the next part. The contractor said, well, the money finished. The money is finished. They started to grade it, then they came back and say, well, the money finished and they can't do it. Something happened there. Some form. And once the PVP is in office, you will see structures like these for $50 and $100 million. You will see structures like these, $58 million. Could you believe it? $58 million. A little steel work, about 20, 25 feet high, probably about 20 feet high, and some black tanks, but six black, 2, 4, 6 black tanks, $58 million. That is the kind of, that is how the PPP manages your money. That is how they manage your money whenever they're in government. We have got to begin to speak up. We've got to let our voices be heard. And when we go to the polls, there's no better way to let our voices be heard than at the polls. We've got to change this government. That is the only way we're going to deal with this. Change this government. Operator, if you can pull up the next slide. Now, you know, we have this talk about discrimination, and there's little talks going on across the country. But whenever you begin to speak on discrimination, you speak on the disparities, you speak on what is happening, the inequalities and the inequity, you're often called racist, or you're often criticized or chastised by different groups with different interests. But we have got to have this national conversation. It's the only way our country will move forward. We need each other. Indians need blacks, blacks need Indians, indigenous people, all six races. We need each other. It is our identity. Six races in this country. That is, Guyana is a unique place, a very, very unique place. And the only way we're gonna move forward is if we're able to be tolerant of each other. If the resources, importantly, we got to develop that tolerance. But you can't expect that tolerance to blossom when you have a government in place that is discriminating against one group or a set of people. These are studies that on the screen that would have been done. Mr. Nigel Hughes, a prominent lawyer, also weighed in on this, would have conducted some studies and weighed in on this. Contract awards. Look, in Region 2, when the coalition came to office, you had one, maybe just one contractor that was Afro-Guyanese. During our time, quite a number of contractors would have surfaced and would have developed and would have worked. Equally, you had a number of Indo contractors. We didn't throw out the Indo contractors that were there. The people from Region 2 can tell you, all got contracts. All got contracts. You hadn't a quarrel over the award of contracts and that kind of thing. At least not in Region 2. I didn't hear about it in other regions. It wasn't widespread as what is happening now. And the PPP, the funny thing is that the PPP uses that. They just recently, the leader of the opposition, I think he was answering some questions, and the reporter, the Guyana Chronicle reporter, attempted to say to him last week at that press conference, attempted to say to him that, what happened during 2015 to 2020? Are you saying that there weren't more Indo contractors than Afro contractors? Yes, there were. We didn't throw out the Indo contractors as a government. You don't do that. You don't do that. Why? Look, we hadn't to throw out Indo contractors. Afro contractors were just given an equal opportunity. and we all got along pretty well. The economy, importantly, the economy became better. People weren't complaining. People weren't complaining the way they're complaining today. This just recently you had I think this is Mustafa's in I agree. Yes, Mustafa pitches there on the wall in the background. This is from his ministry. $1.3 billion in contract. I've just circled for you, for the viewers, so that we can clearly establish who are the contractors. Don't worry about the engineers there that padding up this picture. They are not the contractors. They are not the contractors. Prior to this, you had the leader of the opposition said you had 8 persons with 5 point something billion dollars in contracts. Friend, family, and favorites. You have some young contractors. That one, you can look at that one on the right. He looks pretty young. I'm certain he's way younger than me. He in the $1 billion too. You have Madame at the back. I don't discriminate against women. I believe women should be treated equally, given the same opportunity. But it would be interesting to check the track record of these persons to know if they qualified. And when you see a few Indo-Guyanese getting contracts, it's not all Indo-Guyanese getting contracts, you know. The masses are getting nothing. The poor Indo-Guyanese are getting absolutely nothing from this government, but crumbs, just like the blacks, just like the Afro-Guyanese. They are getting crumbs. For you to get contracts, you got to know somebody. You got to pass something under the table. That is how the PPP operates. We have to get rid of this PPP government. A government like that has no place in this country. We will never get forward if this continues. People will always look to see, look, persons who already have are getting more and more. You have some of them just appear from nowhere and they're getting hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts. Look at the school in Linden. It's not, there are a few Afro-Guyanese that are getting contracts. But under the same system, the same corrupt system, you don't have to be qualified. You don't have to be qualified. Under the coalition, when you came in as a new contractor, all right, you were given certain level of projects, maybe a fence, whatever. We got to try out and see what you can do. We don't dump $100 million on you and then you got to pass back $50 million under the table. But this is what is happening. This is what is happening. You know, just recently, someone from in the Anna Regina area, the Anna Regina new housing scheme, the squatting area as we call it, complained to me that the street lights that they put up there are serving no purpose. This is an Indo-Guyanese, met me in the street. He said, listen, I want you to talk about this in your next program. The street lights that they put up in Anna Regina going to the housing scheme is no good. And he's certain that they would have cost how many millions of dollars? No good. Indo-Guyanese are speaking out. They're seeing what is happening in this country. They're very much conscious what is happening. A lot of them are saying, some of them are saying that they will not vote in the next elections, while some are saying they will vote for the coalition because they believe that under the coalition things were better. Cost of living was not as high. You hadn't this discrimination. Everybody had a fair opportunity. You had equity in the distribution of resources. We got to think about these things. We have to think about these things and don't get carried away with the person who leads the PPP and talks from both sides of his mouth. I see Glenn Ladd doing an excellent job in highlighting that for us. It's sheer lawlessness. I see one person saying it's lawlessness. Yes, it's lawlessness. When we came in, we had to show them how to do proper roads. Queenstown Road, I see somebody there. Miss Hubbard is saying Queenstown Road dug up and left for the longest while. It is not only Queenstown Road. I know, yes, there are lots of roads in Queenstown there, but you have roads in other areas left for months. In Dartmouth, they're complaining. You know why? Because friends, family, and favorites are getting the contracts. And so they need 10, 12 roads on them. Now, they only so much manpower, so much resources, so much equipment, money. They can only be at so many places at once. And so the road has to wait, the project has to wait until they have are completed. You got persons in this region got $1 million in contracts, while some get none. Just give me a second. Let me plug in this my computer. You know, that is the situation in Guyana today. When the coalition took office, you had a number of black contractors and Indo contractors working together in harmony. No problem. They will tell you, no problem whatsoever. And when the PPP came back to office, it went back to the way it was before the coalition. For the last 3 years, you had all the black contractors have disappeared. And some of the seasoned Indo-Guyanese contractors too have not been getting work, because what they're saying is that y'all get work from the PNC. So y'all somehow with the PNC. They got their new friends and family and favorites getting contracts now, getting the bulk of the contracts. 2 black contractors got one contract apiece for 22. One got under $500,000 and the other one got under $1 million. That is all they got. That is all they got. I spoke with one former contractor, black contractor from my community here. Just recently, I saw him doing some work and I thought that I said, boy, you got some work from the government? He said, where? No work, nothing whatsoever. So these guys have just given up on government contracts and they stop bidding, because when you bid, your money just go down the drain. $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 in bids, and just go. When you have these situations developing, you will have problems between. They will develop the festering. You will have it developing into ethnic problems. People are on the edge. People are on the edge. The cost of living is already high as it is, and you're not getting work. You're not getting a fair chance to feed your family. Then what's next? What's next? You know, when you listen to the PPP, you think sometimes you believe all is well in this country. Operator, there is at slide 3 or 4, there should be a slide there that where the minister responds to the guy from Jamaica who's saying Guyana is going nowhere, and they're talking about all they're doing in the island. Totally missed the point. He totally missed the point. I'm trying to get from my operator that slide to show you the barefacedness of this PPP government. I'm trying to pull it up. It's early in the slide here. If you can pull it up to show our viewers Um, let me see. It would be after the corruption index. That slide that is marked PPP rebuke. It'd be slide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. So I don't know if you can read the stuff from the screen, but basically, the minister in charge, or formally in charge of natural resources. I don't think he's in charge. It is Barak Jagdeo who is really in charge. It is he who is in charge, and under his tenure that we were expelled from the EITI organization, the extractive industry organization, because we failed to submit a report on time. This is what the coalition worked hard for. And mind you, persons, if you don't know what I'm talking about, that organization is responsible for transparency and accountability within the extractive industries. It's sort of like an ISO system. So they will recommend certain things that you have to do to ensure transparency and accountability. And you have to do them. You have timelines, etc. And so because the government is so corrupt and they're against transparency, we were expelled. Guyana, it was an embarrassing moment for Guyana. Now, this minister says, and you can pull up the, just make it a little bigger, operator. Now, and this is his rebuke to those independent folks who are saying that Guyana is going nowhere, and they fear that we're getting into the Dutch disease. We'll fall into that trap. Now, they're saying that the Guyana is labeled by leading market participants as the most successful frontier to the early stage production, and that is with respect to oil and gas. That is of no consequence. He missed the point completely. He missed it completely. Of course, it's a leading frontier. We got plenty oil and the people can come and get it. They are seeing opportunity. Are persons in Guyana saying that? No, the answer is no. These are the people from the first world countries that are seeing the opportunity. They can grab as much as they can get. He goes on to say, to chronicle a number of things that they have been doing, and I want to touch on a few. The government highlighted that since taking office in 2020, it has embarked on a series of initiatives to improve the governance framework and management of the petroleum sector. So they list now, this is what they're doing. Update principle conditions and update the principles and conditions of all new petroleum production license. You know, I don't want to get, I think Glenlal does a lot on these things. And enact local content law and establish a secretariat, revision of the natural resource fund law to provide greater oversight and management of revenue. BS. That I want to talk about. Greater oversight and management. Look at the NRF bill that they passed and the persons who they placed on the boards. They don't want anybody independent there. Period. I think I would have written an article and I would have mentioned it on some programs in the past, chronicling the connection of the board members to the PPP. Most of them. While I was in the committee of appointments at the parliament, I would have recommended several independent persons, competent persons, the most competent. And they basically outvoted us. We would have recommended, the opposition would have recommended Christopher Ram, activists. We would have recommended Elson Lowe. We would have recommended Dr. Vince, who has 30 years experience in oil and gas. One qualified. They don't want people like that. They don't want people like that. Pull up the thing. Let me see it again, operator. New environmental permit. So they're boasting now. This is what they're doing. New environmental permitting conditions and fees. Oh, this will save us. The EPA is a toothless poodle. Just ERC that they just swore in. That's another conversation. We'll have to get more time to discuss that. But the EPA is a toothless poodle. Move the persons who led that organization. They removed that, I forgot the doctor's name, that Indian fellow. I believe Dr. Vincent Adams was there. And then you had somebody after the coalition there, Indian fellow, and they just removed him. And they put their puppet there. And now the EPA is constantly saying that they don't need no environmental impact study for almost any of the projects. But somehow, this is an achievement. This is an achievement for this PPP government. Push the next slide, operator. We're winding down. There's so many things that I want to discuss. So they're saying they're conducting, number 5 there, if you can see it, it's a little blurred, but they're conducting cost recovery audits. Really? Conducting cost recovery audits? Since 2019, we would have gotten monies. Coalition would have initiated this. Because the idea is that, look, if this thing goes on audit, you stand to lose more. The audits cost a lot of money. A lot of money. But the point is that if you don't audit, then you will have to accept any of the expenses that Exxon brings. Now, while the contract is saying 50-50, your 50 might be less, so to speak, because if Exxon brings, if the oil company brings all sorts of expenses which shouldn't be charged, that you shouldn't be paid, then you're being robbed your profit. So that's why I'm saying your 50% might be way less than theirs. And so women, they push that one side. It's after, through our advocacy and through the media constantly pressing it, then they said here, early last year, they said, well, they're going to do this audit. It should take about 3 months. After 3 months, the media continue to ask them. Nothing. They don't have a report on the audit. December gone, they still don't have anything on the audit. We're in March. Coming to March month end, we still don't have anything on the audit. What are they talking about? Conducting audits? You know, look, I want to get the other slide. I can speak on all these things. Last slide there, I want to talk on. So this is what I'm still on what in minutes. So he said Guyana has received more than $2 billion in direct oil revenue since the start of oil production. Are you feeling as a Guyanese that we're going somewhere? $2 billion this PPP government would have received. Not Guyana, this PPP government. The coalition didn't get any. This PPP government got. And there, he goes on to say that the government is committed to using a sizable portion to modernize physical, social, and energy infrastructure. Give me a break. Look at what is happening with the gas to shore project. Then they want to use monies to go into Amelia Falls again. The falls that dry up at some time in the year, and all the corruption, all the question marks. They're trying to get into that. And he goes on to say, listen to the politics. Many of it's, well, this is Oil Now speaking for the minister. Many manifesto promises where oil is concerned are being fulfilled, except for the establishment. This is the finisher. except for the establishment of a petroleum commission. The commission would be an independent body of technocrats that manage the sector, so politicians are kept at arm's length. Now, this is the cream of the crop. This right here. So they've done all these things, environmental thing, and the permits and their auditing, right? All that, but they failed to establish a petroleum commission that would have technocrats rather than politicians looking to get some drawback and award stuff to their friends and family and favorites. That is the one that they will not initiate. You will not see a petroleum commission that is properly established with technocrats that are not affiliated with the PPP in this term. They will never, mark my words, they will never. It's only a government, a coalition government, that will embark on such a move. And some will say that, this coalition is stupid for doing that. But we believe in transparency. Our leaders have integrity. Aubrey Norton, nobody can point their fingers at Aubrey Norton. He cannot be accused of corruption. I can't say the same for the fella that leads the PPP and leads our oil industry. Folks, that's it for our program tonight. We are running out of time, and I know you will continue with In the Ring just in a minute or two. And so that would be our program for tonight. There are lots more. I have a number of other slides to discuss, but there's only so much that we can discuss in this hour. We've been on for an hour and 12 minutes now. So I want to thank you for tuning in. And I want to ask that you tune in again next week, same time, same place, when we can continue this discussion on discrimination and all the excesses and the state of our country. Once again, I want to say thank you and good night, and continue to support us, continue to be with us. Good night and God bless.